Awareness is absolutely key. We are so disconnected from our bodies. We live in the mind.
You realize you're actually not in control.
You're never in control.
The nervous system has memory.
Oh, your nervous system is your memory.
Is your memory.
What do they say when you're in a state of panic? Breathe. Really, they should say exhale. Today we're going to talk about the nervous system. What is the nervous system? We hear about it all the time. We talk about regulation. We talk about what we have to do to take care of our nervous system. But what is it? And how does it go with human design? It's actually, in the deconditioning journey, the biggest block to human design. So let's talk about this, Amanda.
I am really excited to deep dive into this topic because I feel like there is a lot of talk about the nervous system, or like nervous system regulation specifically, and yet a confusion that I am facing in terms of like, am I doing it? I think I'm doing those things, because like whenever I ask people like, oh, what do you do to regulate your nervous system? They'll kind of do a list of things. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing that. But like, why is this such a profound shift in the world? Because it seems like there's something else that I'm missing. So I'm very excited to deep dive into this topic.
Yes, yes, yes. So it's funny because you say profound shift in the world, right? Everyone's talking about it. So just a little side note, they say like the nervous system is housed in the solar plexus, which is actually becoming an awareness center in 2027. So we can deep dive into that right now, but just a thought of maybe that's actually started the awareness that's happening is around the nervous system, because this is moving from a motor to, the solar plexus is moving from a motor to the awareness center. So I don't know, there's lots of shifts happening.
Yeah.
But you know, it's one of those things, it's so everyone's talking about it, and I do a lot with it in my practice. And it's really important to understand what the nervous system is, right? So the nervous system, we're talking about, you know, the brain, spinal connections, the connections to the organ systems, but we're really talking about the autonomic nervous system when we're talking about the deconditioning work. The autonomic nervous system, or ANS, I like to think of the automatic nervous system, right? It's your fight or flight, and it's right now. So we have logic, which is right now. So if we can get to this response that keeps us safe and protected and decondition the responses that are no longer adaptive, then we can actually get to the logic. We'll respond fast enough because our maladaptive responses are no longer keeping us stuck in old patterns of behaviors.
Yeah, unpack that a little bit more for us. So obviously the nervous system, we all have it in our bodies. There's the autonomic nervous system. And then how does that actually, like I understand that logic is in the future, the nervous system is in the now. If we can regulate our system, it's almost like we're starting ahead. Like they say, like high performers or sports athletes and different things like that, if they can get into that state, they have a better performance. And same with work and all the things that we do. But break it down for us a little bit more in terms of, like, what does this actually look like?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to childhood.
Okay, perfect.
Because this is where it starts, right? It starts in childhood. When it comes down to it, humans are animals. We are instinctual, we are primal, we have behaviors that keep us safe, and animals are about safety. So we are about safety. So from conception to about 7, 8 years old, some people say all the way up to about 10, but really we'll say 7 or 8 for our purposes today. We're in alpha and theta waves, and these are hypnosis waves. So we're literally downloading our responses to life. When you're an infant, you're a child, you can't change your environment, right? You can't change your family. You can't change your family's design and how you interact with that design. You know, you can't change your school. You can't change really anything. The only thing you can do is learn how to respond, how to adapt in ways that make you feel safe. It really is about safety. And so we develop these habits that become a part of the autonomic nervous system, right? When we think of like the war vet who's come back and here's a car backfire. Shoulders come up, there's an automatic response that happens. Eventually logic kicks in, oh, I'm safe, I'm okay, that was just a car backfiring, right? But there's this automatic response. If you can decondition the trauma, work through the trauma that the vet has gone through, this with a car backfiring doesn't happen as much, right? He can, oh, that was a car backfiring. There's not an, that keeps him in that fight or flight.
The nervous system has memory.
Oh, and your nervous system is your memory.
Is your memory. Yeah.
Yes, it's your instinctual survival memory. Yes.
And how is that connected to neural pathways in the mind?
What do you mean by connection to neural pathways?
So the way that and full transparency, I am horrible with science.
This is not true. Oh my gosh. But these are good questions.
So I will be the one asking all the dumb questions so that we get the answers in a clear, concise way.
No dumb questions.
So like neural pathways, I mean, I think the thing that I have really like found fascinating about those concepts is like we have these grooves in our mind that you do something and then boom, this is the path that is more developed than all the other paths.
Yeah.
And so there's a way to kind of wipe that slate clean through these different techniques. One of them seemingly, like, I feel like there has to be some sort of connection there.
So the way that I look at it is there are all sorts of neural pathways that are, you know, conditioned, right? But that starts with the autonomic nervous system. So that starts with the feeling of not feeling safe. And then that's going to automatically go to all the different pathways for this particular program because we're patterns, right? The brain works in patterns. We are constantly seeing and then organizing and creating patterns out of everything. So if you're triggered by something that reminds you of when you were 8 years old, your system goes back into that pathway. It goes right back into that pattern because this trigger feels very similar to, and your body goes, I know how to do this. I've done it before. And so when we decondition, when we start to remove, so there are techniques that you can do it. A lot of it goes with the vagus nerve. So are you familiar with the vagus nerve?
Yes, but go ahead and describe it.
Yeah. So the vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve in our body. So that means it's coming from the brainstem and it connects to everything in the body, including the adrenals, including your digestion, just everything in the system. They call it the wandering nerve. And it's responsible, and I'm going to really simplify this and overly simplify this because it's a very complex system, but it's responsible for a fight or flight or a rest and digest. So the sympathetic is the fight or flight, parasympathetic is rest and digest. And when we are upregulated, we are not using what they call the dorsal part of the vagus nerve, which is going to kind of bring everything down. We're upregulating and we're activating that nerve in a way that gets us into that fight or flight. So what we want to do is actually activate the part of the nerve that keeps us down in the rest and digest or the parasympathetic. So if we can go back through and feel certain emotions, sit in the emotions, and we'll talk more about this, and breathe. One of the best things that you can do, right? What do you do when you're in panic? Hyperventilate. If we can breathe long, slow exhales, our society does not exhale. We sit in lack of oxygen. Mm-hmm. But if we can exhale, long, slow exhales, we can change the regulation of the nervous system. We can relax, go into that parasympathetic and get out of that fight or flight. That's why they say, what do they say when you're in a state of panic? Breathe. Really, they should say exhale. Exhale, exhale, exhale. Little side note, when we exhale, if we hold our breath at the bottom, then we can actually increase the amount of oxygen that binds to hemoglobin, which is in our red blood cells, and that will spread throughout the body. So we get more oxygen transport throughout the body, which will equate to more energy. So the more relaxed we are, the more we kind of hold our breath at the bottom and lean into that, the more oxygen we get throughout the body and the more energy we get from that.
Okay. So what do you do on a daily basis, and incorporating human design too into this, to go about this nervous system regulation?
So I started with getting certified in a technique called neuro-emotional technique. So this is using kind of a muscle test, and it uses acupuncture points. And I've transitioned these techniques over to human design in particular. So I will, if I'm feeling stuck somewhere, I will actually go through the centers in my mind. And I think in our next video, we'll talk about the questions and we'll go into this technique a little bit deeper. But I'll go into the centers and figure out, of my open centers, where are things not working for me? What am I trying to, like, if my ego center, am I trying to prove something? And I'll sit with that. I use self-muscle testing so I can answer kind of yes or no, or what's going on here. And I'll sit with that and then breathe into that. I'll feel into it and I'll ask myself, what's happening in life right now? Breathe into it and then breathe it out. It's always leaning into the feeling though. So anytime something arises that's uncomfortable, barring I'm in a place where it's okay and safe to feel that emotion, I feel it. I notice it in my body and then breathe through it to change my vagal regulation and start to release from there. And I do that every day, multiple times a day. I do it in my practice over and over and over with my clients. It's fantastic. So I wanted to just talk another way we can think about the deconditioning, right? How does the conditioning happen? So are you familiar with Pavlov's dog? Do you remember Pavlov's dog?
I've heard
from psychology.
This, but like I need, is it something about the bell?
Yes, okay. The bell, the saliva, the dog, yes.
Yes, okay.
So I think this is really important to kind of understand how this conditioning really happens, right? When we're young, we're downloading our program, but we still develop patterns as we get older that are maybe not the healthiest for us. So the Pavlov's conditioning is how this happens, right? So when we are, let's say...
Go ahead and describe Pavlov's dog.
Perfect. So Pavlov's dog, he took a dog and gave him food. Notice that he would salivate. So take the food away and then just do a bell. The dog doesn't salivate. Over time, giving food and a bell, so he's getting both stimuli. Eventually, the dog salivates, and over time, you take the food away and keep giving the bell, or you give the bell, the dog will salivate with just the bell. It doesn't need the food. So it's a conditioning process that's happening. We do this in life constantly. We're exposed to something over and over and exposed to something else. So we can take the example of a child in school who sees their friends are inviting, they're all happy. The next day, they see their friends, the friends reject them, and maybe they get a stomach ache with that, and they feel sad and anxious. And this happens over maybe one time, maybe it happens over and over in this child's life. Now, we fast forward 20 years and we see this 28-year-old and they see all of their colleagues at work gathered together. The colleagues are open, there's no problem, but for some reason, this adult now is getting a stomach ache and feeling a little bit of anxiety and unsure why she feels anxiety when all of her colleagues are together. And that's that Pavlov conditioning. It's a traumatic event, something happened in youth. And so that's what needs to be deconditioned. Going back through, finding that event and sitting through the feelings in the body. And if you don't know what the event is that happened, but you feel this kind of anxiety and you're not sure why, you can just sit with the feeling and start to do the breathing exercises and start to help remove that from your system.
I could totally see these elements that we're all walking around with. And I think human design, for me, as someone that has not been in the world of science, has been so incredibly powerful to be like, oh, I recognize it. I recognize what happens when this person is about to have an emotional wave and I have to walk around it to avoid triggering that wave, and whatnot. And the questions associated with each center, am I avoiding confrontation and truth in order to help me overcome that conditioning factor? So adding this on top of, this nervous system regulation concept. So how do you decondition the nervous system? Yeah.
So awareness is absolutely key, right? We have to have awareness what's happening in the system that's the questions of the centers are a great way to kind of start that. But the biggest thing with deconditioning is to have the awareness of the body. What am I feeling in my body right now? We are so disconnected from our bodies. We live in the mind. It's so much more comfortable to live out here than to sit in the body. And the human design process is an embodiment process, right? The mind is the passenger. The body is the vehicle. And if we want to drive properly, then we have to be embodied. So the best way to do that is to start practicing what are you feeling in the moment, and then learning how to release that. There's a really great trauma video, and it shows this impala. So the impala is kind of like, I don't know, it's like an antelope or something like that animal. But it's an impala caught by a cheetah. And another animal comes, so the impala is laying there and it's literally playing dead. It's not breathing, you see nothing happening, it looks dead. The cheetah's kind of gnawing on it. Something else walks along, I think it's maybe a hyena, comes up and scares the cheetah off. You see the impala lying there and it doesn't move for a little while. And then all of a sudden you see it start breathing. Its belly is moving and it's breathing heavy. And then it sits up and it begins to shake. Yes, and it shakes and shakes and shakes. And then it gets up and runs off. And it probably never thinks about that situation again, right? Because it's living in situational awareness. But that piece is really important for us to feel. We stop that. As humans, as animals, we stop that. We say, oh, no, I don't want to feel that. I'm going to go out here. I'm going to create some logical story around this. So the best thing you can do to decondition is to have the awareness of what am I feeling in my body right now? Sitting with it and allowing it to grow. So I practice on the inhale, letting it grow and get as big as it needs to, trusting my body to release this process. And then on the exhale, long, slow exhale, letting the body release the stress. It's just a stuck stress response. And we have these over and over and over and over, and they condition our centers. They tell us how to respond. When we can release those traumas, release that physiology, then we can actually see life not through an emotional reality, but through a clear reality in the now.
I think it's fascinating because somehow I have landed on what is a scientific study without any of the science, right? So
Yeah.
it's very much living in the abstract, in the experiential side of it, and trying to, I think it's one of the same reasons why I'm like, human design is everything. Like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, because it is that feeling. Where am I feeling in my body? You know, I think we did that in a previous podcast where I talked about like the ego, where it's pulling me, how I do this, and then how you let it go. Combine that with plant medicines and the teachings that can come in that process of just shake, let it go, let it go. Like you could feel, you know, like moving energy through you and incorporating that in everyday life as well. Yeah. And so it is interesting to be, in some ways, I feel like maybe what's happening with this nervous system regulation is like, it's a term that people finally have to put on to something that maybe they've previously been doing in different ways, but now it's like, this is it. Or they have never experienced those other things that I was talking about because they're logical individuals that don't want to play with things that are not safe or not scientifically proven, right? Human design being one of them. Exactly. Plant medicine being another one. 100%. Right? Like if you're not going to touch those things, nervous system regulation is that logical entry point into it. Yes. And the description of it.
I love that you put it that way. I love that you put it that way because that's absolutely true. It's a way to feel safe, to start to get embodied. It's a way you can, because well, maybe not everyone, but I feel like most everyone that comes to human design comes to it with the mind. Comes to it from a place of, oh, I'm going to learn this. Oh, this makes sense. And many people stop there and say, I don't understand, human design isn't working for me, or why can't I move past this? Why can't I let go of my generator life as a projector? Why can't I switch from task to task, or from career to career as a manifesting generator, right? Why can't I do this and be okay with it without judging myself? Those judgments come from the body. Those judgments come from those past behaviors, those triggers that we've learned. They're all learned, conditioned behaviors and feelings. So human design is a great way to start to say, okay, maybe it is my open ego, and I'm always trying to prove something. I feel so much shame because I'm constantly trying to prove myself and I'm never good enough, right? So then it's just sitting with that, wow, what do I feel in my body? And some people feel nothing. That's the thing too. It takes practice. This is not I just walk in, unless you do plant medicine, and then sometimes it's just gonna knock you into it. That's another podcast.
It is, and it's one that like we've planted seeds on already in all of our episodes, and it's partially because we just can't not talk about it. And we will do an episode. We considered doing it today where we deep dive into this subject a little bit more. But it is such a game changer.
Oh, huge!
Because it doesn't. Like I was listening to a podcast recently that was explaining how the thing with meditation is some people, they meditate and they try to meditate, but they can't get there.
Yep.
They can't quiet their mind, or they think that that's the goal.
Yes.
Right? Like if you have a defined head, defined ajna, like that mind is never going to be quiet.
No.
It's not.
No.
But it's a learning to observe it without the attachment to it and whatnot. But it takes dedication and it takes practice and it takes consistency to get there.
Yep.
Introduce plant medicine and it helps someone get there without fail.
Yeah, it does. It really does. I'll say this. I think for a lot of people, plant medicine can be a gateway to being able to feel their body, to open those pathways. For some, it's really terrifying and it's better to do and practice the embodiment work before you go to that place, because there's no control in that place. And the more you try and control in that world and in that plant medicine state, the worse it's going to be for you.
Which is why a lot of people don't want to do it. I don't want to be out of control.
Yes.
And I think that there is an element, I definitely have resonated with that at periods of my life for sure.
Yeah.
Even still, like, oh my God, like there's a fear component to that.
Yeah.
But I think that that's kind of the interesting thing about this nervous system regulation is you realize you're actually not in control.
You're never in control. You are never, and I think you and I are both in this motivation, the more you let go, the calmer your nervous system becomes, right? The more you realize that control is an illusion. Control is the mind. Control is the mind. Now, are there some times where you maybe feel a little bit safer? Yeah, of course. But eventually it usually makes things harder because you attach to something. And when you can just let go, just embody the experience, embody where you are. And that's the whole key of meditation too, right? It's just to be present. It's awareness, consistent awareness. Ooh, I'm feeling a little bit nervous right now, or my stomach is a little bit tight, or my right toe is twitching. What's going on right here, right? It can be very simple things, but your body's always speaking to you. Always, always speaking to you. And it keeps you in the moment when you can have that awareness.
So really, I want to somehow transfer this wisdom to our audience because I didn't fully understand, and even in this conversation and hearing you describe it, there is, at least maybe because I'm more experiential and more abstract circuitry, and those that will listen to might be more of that, right? The logic in some regard gets caught in talking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And it is also mental, right? To a degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, because there's no motors there. And so when we click into the abstract and you experience it, sometimes that's the nervous system, right? That is the
100%.
Emotional solar plexus that's coming through.
Yes.
So what if we did some sort of experimental thing where we talked through, and I'm happy to do it too, like whereas if I'm on your table.
Yeah.
And people get to witness the connecting the dots of how you release something.
Yeah.
Because until you see it or really like experience it, like you might be guiding me through it, but in some ways you guys could also guide yourselves through it, through my personal experience and through the questions.
100%. I love this.
Let's do
I love this. Okay.
Wear my heart on my sleeve. Let's dive into my deep, dark secrets.
I would ask, what feels like your biggest stressor in life right now?
Great question. Honestly, there's multiple things. I have been heavily deconditioning my throat center. That has been big. And I think the the undefined identity in terms of the possibilities of all different directions available to me, specifically in terms of moving. Because we've been really debating moving outside of the city, possibly buying land, playing with a million factors.
Yeah.
Right? This. What if this happens? Boom, that's out. What's the next step? What happens if we're here? What about that school? Like, because now with having a child and having to consider schools in the equation. And
I would ask, is there something with the open ajna and looking for certainty where there may be no certainty in all the questions?
Always. And it's almost like the pressure of the root wanting, like needing, there's pressure. Yeah. There's pressure that a decision is coming that does need to be made.
What is the pressure? What is the pressure? The decision has to be made, or what?
We need to move out of our current lease.
Okay.
And
so there's a time limit.
There's a time limit.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happens if you don't? So we're just going to play kind of worst case scenario.
Okay,
where does this
so
go?
Good. This is going to be so good. Okay. So we currently rent from my mom. My mom is the landlord. So she has been giving us a pretty good deal on the place. We're still paying, a decent amount, but she's ready to either sell the house in the market that, there's a lot of things going on right now in the market. So that's a timing thing, as well as Sam's health situation. All of this, as I hear myself describing it, it's all logical.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And it's coming, it's right.
We're going to play with the logical mind because we're going to get into the body through the logical mind because that's where we all live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like all of these things are coming down to avoiding confrontation and truth, like trying to walk on eggshells around all these things.
Yeah.
But so there's that. Sam's health is affected by where we live, and every day is a struggle.
Yeah.
And that would be a big thing to move out because there's a lot of EMFs. Yeah. There's very little ground to walk on, no trees around us, anything like that.
Yeah.
Very little nature. Then also my mom, if she doesn't sell, she could rent it for a higher amount.
Okay.
And so there's we are doing a disservice. It's kind of like we talked about previously, like being okay with living in your safety net a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? But then recognizing the detriment on someone else by doing that and being okay with that.
Yep.
So
it is. The next question is always, what's the hardest part of this for me? Why would this bother me? So you want to kind of keep digging down until you find that root. And we're going to connect that with the Human Design Center. So what's the hardest part of this for you? Why does all of this bother you?
It feels like life is on hold until this decision is made. Specifically from a building my mom community.
Oh, so community.
Community.
Okay.
And fears associated with moving out to the middle of nowhere and there not being community, right? I know that's not necessarily true, but a lot of it does revolve around community.
So your 4-line, needing that community, your network. Yeah.
And we're going through the 19 transit right now.
Yes.
Which is very fascinating.
Yeah.
In terms of being dedicated to resources. Like my sensitivity is dedicated to resources.
Yes.
That is so real. Like I need the resources and it's like ever present right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's the hardest part of, let's say there's no community. What's the hardest part of that? Why would that bother you?
Loneliness.
Loneliness. Loneliness. Okay. Is it loneliness, being alone, being lonely? What resonates with you?
You ask it in a different way.
So there's a difference between I'm lonely, I'm alone, right? There's a different feeling with it. So I just want you to feel into your body, right? Don't think up here, but just feel into your body. You can even close your eyes and just notice. And that's a good way to get started. Just notice your body. So just start to notice your back against the chair, your seat in the seat, your legs on the seat, your feet on the floor. Just notice the sensations, the sounds around you, your hands on your legs, your breath. Just want you to either say out loud or in your head, loneliness. Notice the sensations that come up in your body, if any. And then I want you to say out loud or in your head, alone.
Alone.
Notice any sensations. Was there one that hit harder than the other?
Loneliness.
Loneliness. Yeah. It's bringing up some, yeah, I can see it in your face.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, I don't mind being alone.
Okay.
There's no problem.
Let's stay with the loneliness.
Yes.
So I want you to close your eyes. I want you just to go through your open centers. Let's start with your head. Is there any sense of trying to answer anybody else's questions, solve anybody else's problems?
Always.
Always.
Totally open head.
Okay, let's hold that and let's go to the ajna. I just want you to feel the ajna, the need for certainty, and connecting it with this feeling of loneliness. Is there anything that correlates or connects there for you? Do you notice anything in your body?
No.
Okay. Let's go to your next open center, your throat center. Is there any sort of trying to get attention to?
No.
Go to your G. Any sort of direction, love connected with the loneliness?
Yes.
Good. Now I want you to go back to your head and to your G and toggle kind of back and forth and feel which one do you feel stronger with?
G.
G. Good. Go to your next open center, your ego. Is there any sort of trying to prove anything there? No. Okay. Let's go to solar plexus and confrontation.
Oddly, no.
Okay, good. See, the logical mind thinks, but the body knows.
Right, 100%.
All right, let's go to the sacral.
No.
No. Okay, let's go back to the G.
The root.
Oh,
Yeah.
you forgot. Is your root open?
Oh, right, you're right.
No,
Only
yeah,
open.
we're just going
Yes,
open.
yes. Yeah, the G. It's
let's
100%.
go back to the G.
It's the G.
Yeah. Just for fun, let's test the root. Go ahead and let's go back to the root and just feel if the loneliness correlates with any feeling in the root, pressure, time pressure. Because we can have programming of our defined centers.
I think yes. Especially since, yeah, I do.
Okay. You said, I think yes. So, I want you to close your eyes again and go back and forth between the root and the G. Tell me which one feels stronger with that sense of loneliness.
That's a tough one.
Okay.
It's almost like the root, to be honest.
The root?
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. So let's go to the root and let's go to that time pressure feeling. What do you notice in your body when you think of loneliness? Is there a story there? What is the story? How does loneliness go with your pressure?
How does loneliness go with the pressure?
How would you put those things together?
I'm afraid I'm too much.
Afraid you're too much.
Especially for country folk.
How about this? We're gonna go a little deeper into, just because we're here.
Okay.
What is the uncertainty? So each of these centers has emotions associated with them, and we can go into that another time, but there's uncertainty. The root center is about not knowing, unsure. How does that emotion go with loneliness and this pressure?
Say it again.
How does uncertainty or unsure, this pressure, go with loneliness? How do you put those together? What's your story?
The lack of certainty of where I will live creates isolation from embedding myself in communities, which in turn creates loneliness.
Where do you feel that in your body? What do you notice in your body?
I definitely feel a heaviness in the root,
Good.
/ even a little sacral.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to breathe into that. Allow that feeling to be there on the breath in, And every breath out, give your body permission to release that story. You've got to figure this all out right now. Otherwise, you're going to be lonely. You're not going to find your network. And as you do that on the breath in, keep letting that feeling be there. And on the breath out, I want you to rewrite that story. What is the actual truth of that? The truth of the root center is timing, is you have the right timing. That pressure is there when it's the correct timing. So on the breath out, rewrite that story, that narrative, and just keep breathing until you feel that release. If it gets stuck or moves somewhere, for our purposes today, we'll stop, but I would recommend that if you're doing this at home, if it gets stuck somewhere or it moves, you notice it, just follow it and then go back through the centers, ask your questions, and just continue this until you feel released and relaxed and neutral.
No, I think it's a good exercise to show, and hopefully let us know. Like drop your comments below. Like, did that hit home for you? What feels good in that? I think for me, it's a recognition. Like, the more that I dive into this kind of work, it's crazy how much is in the root. Yeah. And the amount of deconditioning that needs to occur within a conditioned center.
Yeah. That blew my mind, because when I first started this, I was like, oh, it's all in the open centers and the undefined centers. It's so not. It is so not. There's a lot of conditioning that happens in the defined centers.
Yeah. And like, it was very identity at the same time, in that the identity is like, will I fit in there?
Yeah.
When in reality, an open identity is going to fit in anywhere.
Exactly. And so then maybe that's just going through and sitting with that and saying, I fit in anywhere. And just saying the wisdom of that center. I'm a chameleon. I fit in anywhere.
And I'm an individual.
Yeah, yes, you are.
And there will always be melancholy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's kind of what was coming to me to a degree with that energy. And it's like, it's an acceptance of self.
Beautiful.
And so it's like, can you sit in this acceptance of self, knowing that even in times of loneliness, community is always close by.
Yes.
Even in times of transitoriness, even, right? Which is a heavy conditioning factor within my world. I keep hearing myself say, like, I don't want to be transitory anymore. I want to have roots. Yeah. Right? Which is the root. But it's like, even in that, you can have community, because it's consistent. There's consistency there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I feel like we have these things built into us that are, especially from an awareness perspective, which the nervous system is part of the solar plexus, which is an awareness center. Yep. The spleen is about survival, which is an awareness center. Yep. Right? There's all these fears. I mean, say with the ajna, there's fears associated with each one of these. Yep. And those fears come through via awareness, and we have natural gifts and abilities built in to overcome them. Yes. And so it's like, when you face these things and you face the nervous system, like the conversations that we just had, even if it mentally doesn't make sense, right? Like, we can make up stories about it, and it's like, you face it, and then it's like you hit that rub, and you're hitting that fear where it's like, why is this a fear? Yeah. This is me. Exactly. And I'm fine. Fear is judgment. Yeah. Fear is everything is judgment. Everything. Because we could even go deeper with the loneliness and say, what's wrong with me if I'm lonely? If I'm feeling lonely, then there's something wrong with me. I've done something. There's a judgment with it. So it's learning how to drop that judgment. And you do that by nervous system regulation, which is exactly the breathing, the awareness. That is how we decondition and get into the body and drive this vehicle. Yes. And you don't have to understand. No. And that's the thing too. I say your narrative, your story, how does it, you don't always have to have that. If you just feel it in your body, sometimes just sit with that and breathe through it. That's enough. Mm-hmm. You don't have to always know. My 1156, my ajna, I want to know. But I don't know, and it's okay. That's my phrase. That's a big learning lesson. Exactly. 100%. Exactly. Which is, here we are doing all this. That's right. So, oh my gosh, I think it was so good. I really appreciated that process, and I really hope you guys appreciate it as well. Once again, drop your stories below, share your experience, and if you have any questions that arise in this process, please also share those, because we are very much going to engage in the comments, and we want this to be a community because no one wants to be lonely. So thanks for watching, and if you want to watch the next video where we are diving into all of the open centers and looking a little bit more about when it's wisdom, when it's not self, then go ahead and watch that on the screen here. I'll see you in the next video.